Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is March 24th. The season's in 3 days, so we got to go through our predictions for the 2024 season. Let's do it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today? Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday. It is 3 days away, 4 days away, whatever you want to call it. Opening day is this Thursday. I am so excited to finally have baseball back in our lives for a full 6 months, 7 months plus playoffs. I just can't wait. This Thursday, call in sick, skip school, do whatever, watch some baseball Thursday, watch your team, and hopefully get off to a 1-0 start. And if you're the Dodgers and Padres, try not to go 1-2. Today's episode, and our last episode of the offseason, really, is our predictions. And I'm saying our because I'm with a very special guest, a good friend of mine. Orna, say hello.
What's up? How everyone doing today?
That is a good friend of mine. Decided to bring him on here for today's episode to get more variety for predictions because last year I did not do so hot. Out of the awards and managers and everything, I got 3 out of 10, 30%. I'll take that, but we're going to do better this year. So Borna's going to be able to help me out here. So we're going to dive things. We're going to get straight on into everything here. And to start, first and foremost, we're going with MVPs, the big awards of the day. We'll go awards first, and then we'll talk some division winners and obviously World Series towards the end. So stay tuned for that. But yes, we're going to go with MVPs first. Borna, who do you got for your AL MVP?
So I think Juan Soto's got a good shot at it, simply because he's moving to a more hitter-friendly ballpark. You know, last year he hit for 35 home runs, 109 RBIs at Petco. He's young, reaching his prime, and I think especially in that Yankees lineup behind or even in front of Judge, he has protection, so pitchers are going to have to pitch to him more, and that short porch is going to help him out, I think.
I like that. I agree with you in that way where I think Soto's going to have a good year. You know, it's a contract year for him. Finished 6th in MVP voting last year in the NL side of things. I kind of like the Soto shout. You know, if the Yankees are kind of what they're going to be, depending on how that pitching pans out, I think Juan Soto, you know, mixing up in the lineup between Stanton and Judge is going to be a nice little combo there for sure. So Soto pick, I like it. But my pick, going a little bit more out of the box, we're going with Bobby Witt Jr., from your Kansas City Royals. It's a little outrageous this early in his career, I know, but the 24-year-old, or soon to be 24-year-old, I'm expecting big things for in 2024 here. Last year had a 30-30 season, 30 home runs, and 49 stolen bases. He had an .813 OPS, and that was good enough for 7th in the MVP. Of course, Kansas City made a lot of additions in this offseason. And I think, you know, saying that the Royals are going to be a playoff team or even a wild card team is a little, you know, a bit absurd at this point. But I definitely think the Royals can easily be close to 500 if Bobby Witt's producing on all levels. Could he hit 40 home runs and have this fantastic season? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, I think Bobby Witt, you know, with the stolen bases, you know, playing at Kauffman still. Kauffman's a nice park for hitters. I think Bobby Witt's kind of a lock, not kind of a lock, but I think he has a great chance at being the MVP. So yeah, I think Bobby Witt is definitely going to be a really special player this year, and he's my pick for the 2024 season.
I think it's kind of crazy. I don't think I feel like pitchers are going to know him now. They've seen him for a year. Like he may be he could be in voting. I don't think he has a shot. Once again,
he's definitely going to be in the voting. He is a great player, and you can make an argument for the best shortstop or one of the best shortstops right now. He's easily top 5. You throw in him, Seager, Bichette, Lindor, who's the other guy?
I also think to win MVP, your team has to be good, which his is not. And
we don't know how good Kansas City is going to be this year.
You're like, I guess they play in the AL Central, but like I don't know, man.
AL, the AL mid division.
It's just the bad division in baseball. Like no other. It's just bad. It's just horrible.
But yeah, but in regards to that division, I mean, the Twins can obviously win that division easily if they can just play up to their potential and everything. But we're talking about a real opportunity for teams like the Tigers, like the Royals, who can make a run for that division, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But I think Bob Witt, he could potentially lead the Royals into a very, special spot here in 2024. And I think it's worth knowing that he could definitely win an MVP.
Okay.
All right. Well, moving on. Anyways, we'll get into our NL MVP choices here. Bona, you went first with the AL, so I'll go first with the NL here. And I'm thinking we're going to have a third MVP for the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bryce Harper. New position, kind of officially now. He played a little bit last year as well, coming back from injury, doing a little bit DH. But it's going to be the first baseman going forward. Rhys Hoskins is gone. I like Philly a lot. I don't know if I like him as much as the Braves, but I think if the Phillies have any chance at the division, Bryce Harper is going to be at his best that he's been since joining Philadelphia, really. And of course, he already has an MVP with Philly in 2021. He's dealt with the injuries. He's back to form. I like Bryce. Last year, 126 games, 21 home runs. So, the numbers have definitely declined from that injury, but he also played, 20 less games or so. Still a 293 batting average, so he still hits for contact, 900 OPS. He still has that power. And yeah, now that the lineup's a little bit cleared up a little bit more, Turner now it's slotted in. He's more comfortable. Second year in Philly. Phillies have a good team, good lineup. Harper has that protection. And I just feel strongly about Bryce Harper entering the 2024 season.
Honestly, I respect it. I was thinking when I was making mine on Harper, obviously he came back from injury and stuff, and who knows, but I do think he could be in my opinion, a dark horse for it, or like dark horse in terms of maybe like a guy who like you shouldn't write off,
Sure.
But compared to the guy I'm gonna talk about and maybe the other guy I'm gonna mention, I don't think he is as a favorite as these guys are, but I do think it's a good shout.
All right, well then, who are you guys then? Who do you think is going to outbeat Harper here?
So I had two guys, and I was thinking about it. So the one I didn't choose was Ronald Acuna Jr. Now,
Okay.
just because winning it back to back is something in any sport I feel very hard to do, even if you have a really good season, because once again, voting fatigue or just they're gonna compare you to your last season and whatnot. But that's why I'm going with Mookie Betts. He's officially a shortstop. He finished in a tight race. I remember last September, it was going back and forth between him and Acuna. And I think Mookie has started this season hot. He has like kind of a 2-game advantage already. So we have a sample size. He's hitting 667 in his first game with a
Okay, but that's against the Padres.
Hey, it's the pot, but it's still better than it's a sample size. It is small, but he's only playing shortstop. He second last year, and I think the only person who can take it from him is Acuna. Obviously, without injuries or anything, but like last year, he hit 39 home runs with 107 RBIs. They added Shohei to that lineup, barring he doesn't get suspended, but we won't get into that. But that's another bat, and it comes down to who in that lineup is going to get pitches thrown to. And I think Mookie will benefit more than not, as now pitchers have to worry more. As we saw in Yu Darvish's first start against them, he was struggling, not because he was struggling to locate or anything, because he had to make a good pitch to almost all those batters. And that's the scary thing of this Dodgers team. And I think that's going to help Mookie kind of pump his stats this year.
I mean, I 100% understand. First of all, you have to think that it is still like spring training. Like I know the 2 games already happened and everything, but the only pitcher who went 5 innings was Tyler Glasnow. Like all the starters were struggling. It might be not as universal as other pitchers, but still, the move to shortstop for Mookie, it's definitely something that you can argue is a good thing for him and will help him out. You could also say it's the opposite. Yes, Mookie Betts is this, generational athlete. When I think of an athlete, my mind goes to Mookie Betts. I think he is the best athlete in sports, or at least one of them, because I've seen videos of this guy play basketball, but he does bowling, and like he is good at any sport. You can put him in football, he'll do it all. And I think he's going to still be a great ball player at shortstop and have all that success. But, it's still a change of a scenery for him. It's a little bit different still. We, in the short sample size that we saw in those 2 games, he was making nice throws, and it helps that Freddie Freeman's a tall guy over there. But there was a bobble or two still. So I mean, the move is going to be good for the Dodgers overall. And I think Mookie Betts is a great pick. And we've seen this guy have a lot of success before in Boston. Obviously, an MVP winner already. I hope he hits 40 home runs. He's never done that in his career. He was one away last year, so I would like to see that. I think it's obviously the safest choices is Mookie Betts and Acuna. And I think you're safe to say that, like, yeah, it's going to be one of those two, or like it's the safest options. I would love to see Mookie do it, but I don't think it's as clear day as you might think over there, because the NL teams, like, there are some great players that we haven't really discussed, that we haven't mentioned. There was that race last year, like you said, with Acuna and Betts. But I mean, right beneath them were their teammates, Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson. And if Matt Olson can have any kind of a repeat as he did last season, Matt Olson, you can definitely give it a shout for if he can, increase the batting average a little bit. But yeah, overall, Mookie Betts is a great shout. And we'll have to see kind of how his season, continues to go off. Does have that first home run of the season already locked in. So that's something to be happy about. All right, now let's move on here from the MVPs and get into our Cy Young predictions here. We're going to start in the AL as usual here, and I'll go first again because why not? There is a lot of great pitchers, and I think this is kind of where the hardest kind of award to pick for, because you could pick your guy and first 3 starts are awful, and then maybe that's already down the drain, right? You want someone who's going to be able to work all year long, who's going to be, on a good team and winning games. And, when you think of the AL guys, you can go through Houston's team, you can go through Texas's team. You can obviously say Cole, but of course, Cole's got his injury. I'm going to go with a late bloomer here, someone who I think has just gotten better and better each year. Even though this is his 12th year, Mr. Kevin Gausman from your Toronto Blue Jays here. The 2-time All-Star, and all of his success has come in the last 3 years of his career here, the last one being with the Giants in 2021, and then the 2 years with the Blue Jays. Outside of that, all of his time from 2013 onward, he has been kind of a nobody, Mr. Irrelevant, Mr. 5 ERA, 4 ERA, wherever. And, his splitter's gotten a lot better. One of the best pitches in baseball. And last year, he was great. 12-9 record, a 3.16 ERA, 185 innings pitched, 237 strikeouts. He led the AL and pretty much almost led the league if it wasn't for Spencer Strider. His second All-Star, and finished 3rd in Cy Young. And I think the Blue Jays are going to have a lot more opportunities this year to win games and to be a better team. Gausman, the last 3 years as well, 33 starts, 31 starts, 31 starts. He's healthy. He's good. His splitter is disgusting. The fastball is great. I think Gausman's going to have a really great shot at the AL Cy Young this year.
Yes, I also picked Gausman for this, and just to add on to it, I see the NL as a stronger pitching division, and I'll get into why it would, like, for me, it was harder to choose who wins in the NL.
Sure.
Because looking at the AL's top 12 last year, you have Garrett Cole, he's dealing with injury. Sonny Gray went to the NL. Then you have Gausman. Then you have Kyle Brandis, Luis Castillo, Zach Eflin, Pablo Lopez. And Pablo Lopez is the only other guy here that I'm looking at. Maybe Kyle Brandis, but even then, I think it's a Pablo Lopez, Kevin Gausman race at the moment in my head. And everyone else is more toss-up, or who knows. Like, because pitching, in my opinion, is always something that it goes one way or the other. You never really know how a pitcher is going to perform. This goes for hitters too, but just look at my guy, Alek Manoah, who went from a top 3 Cy Young pitcher to being in AAA, right? And I think Gausman has the experience to take this. He's been producing at a high level already. And the only thing I can see hurting him is his injury he's dealing with right now. But I don't think, from what other reports I've seen, it's too serious. So I can see him coming in, dominating quickly, and holding that for the entire year for the Jays.
Yeah, I mean, last year's Cy Young was a little bit weird. like outside of Cole, who was, let's be honest, the obvious choice. I mean, Sonny Gray had a fantastic year, but Sonny Gray's always had, one-off years of amazingness followed by years of not so much. Kyle Bradish, if he's going to be healthy right now, there's no timetable for his return right now with that sprained elbow that he got. The Mariners pitchers you could definitely give some love for, because I mean, any one of them, Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, George Kirby, could all come out and have a strong start to the season and make a case for it. But yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with you. I think Gausman is being at that level now for so long. The strikeouts per 9 keep getting better. He's just getting hit as fool, and that splitter is nasty. And I think he is a clear choice here for the AL Cy Young. But moving on now for that NL Cy Young, that you say you have a lot more pitchers to choose from here, and I do agree with you on that. So where did you end up going?
So I kind of went an interesting route on this one. I went for a newly acquired Dodger in Tyler Glasnow. Now, this guy is filthy. I feel like if he stayed healthy last year, he could have been in that running for Cy Young. I feel like injuries have been his downfall his entire career. Just looking at his ERA for the past 4 seasons, or 4 seasons including this season as he's already pitched, he's had a 2.66, 1.35, 3.53 ERA respectively and it's just been his injuries. He's only eclipsed 100 innings pitched twice in his career, once being last season. And I think with the Dodgers and their depth, he can succeed and stay healthy, especially with how many starting pitchers they have. Like, I know me and you talked earlier this week, and we were going through, like, they have like 10 to 12 starting pitchers on their staff. Some of them may be injured right now, but that's got to do something for longevity, right? And even if we look at his first start against the Padres, he just gave up 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, allowed 4 walks, but overall struck out 3 in 5 innings of work to start the season. And as we say, he's the only pitcher to even touch 5 in those first 4 games, for 2 games through the first 4 starters, right? And we saw what Yamamoto did, but that wasn't good. So I think there's really a spot for Tyler Glasnow to take over that rotation with Walker Buehler and be that 1-2 punch for the Dodgers this year.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the thought process there. He's definitely a guy who has dealt with those injuries, like you said. And I think the Dodgers are obviously going to have a good year, without a doubt. I just don't think he's going to be healthy. Yes, there is the world where that's the case, but we just haven't seen it yet. We don't live in that world where we get a Tyler Glasnow healthy. Like, he has not pitched more than that. Last year was the first year in his career where he's pitched over 20 games in a season, or like made 20 starts, I should say, because he's come out of the bullpen before in the early days with Pittsburgh. But yeah, he's not a guy who stays healthy. He's tall and lanky, and that leads to elbow injuries. That's what he's had in the past. I mean, when you say in the last 3 seasons, he's made 37 starts, and in a 9-year career, he doesn't even have 100 starts yet to his name. If we go back quickly to talk about Gausman, I mean, 11 years, sure, a little bit of a 2-year longer career, but he has 260 starts under his belt. Glasnow's nowhere close to that. His last name is Glass. He's made out of it. He's not going to be healthy. I think, yes, he has the filthiest stuff, in the big leagues right now. One of, if not the most. Like, I agree with you there that he has, when healthy, he's performing at high levels. The last 3 seasons, all with the Rays here, 23 starts, a 10-7 record, and a 3.41 ERA, 126 innings pitched, and 172 strikeouts. That is great. 100% that is great. But that needs to be for 30 games in a season. He needs to get to that mark. I don't think he's capable of that. There are certain players in this league, like, for example, Byron Buxton, who just don't have the ability to stay healthy. Tyler Glasnow is unfortunately one of those pitchers, and but I'm hoping to be wrong about that statement, and I hope he is going to be healthy this year. But I think it's only a matter of time before the same thing that happens every year happens, and that is he's going to get hurt. It's unfortunate, but it's the way it goes. If you go off projections, I mean, everything projects him to be hurt. It's just the way Glasnow is unfortunately turned out to be. But I hope he proves me wrong. I just don't think that your pick there is the most confident one out of the bunch?
I don't know. He like if we're going to give Gosman his roses of he can strike people out, and that Gosman led the AL last season with in strikeouts, but he also led in strikeouts per nine at 11.5. In Glasnow's year last year, if we just want to compare it to Gosman, who finished third in Cy Young, just for thing, Gosman pitched 185 innings while Glasnow pitched 120. So there is a discrepancy there, but it's, in my opinion, it's not the biggest where it's like the stats are that crazy different. So 11.5 for Gosman, and Glasnow was pitching at 12.2 per nine. I generally think,
But they also pitch him less because the Rays have that bullpen to go to, and Glasnow, like, he's known to be hurt, so they don't let him go long innings. How many times did Gosman go 7 innings for the Blue Jays last year? Versus how many times did Glasnow get 5 or 6? Like, I obviously understand the point you're going to try to make here, but in my opinion, 121 games in 120 innings. Like, you're the math guy. That's not a great length. Like, and yes, he has the stuff to strike people out. But if you're talking about a Cy Young winner, would you rather have a guy go 7 innings and get you 8, 9 Ks, or a guy who's going to go 5 innings and get you 12 Ks, 13 Ks in the game, across the full season? I would go on the latter, or excuse me, not the latter. I take the 7 innings and 9 strikeouts, because that throughout a whole season, that eats up a lot. It saves the bullpen a ton. Obviously it was still spring, but we saw it in the Seoul series. The Dodgers used a lot of pitchers because, guess what? Glasnow went 5 innings pitched. It's what he does. In 2022, he made 2 starts and in total was 6 2/3. Like, he wasn't healthy. And like, yeah, if you're going to go off of that year, he has a 13.5 strikeouts per nine, but he only played 6 innings. So I don't know. I understand your point. And yes, if he is healthy, he's going to be nasty. But I just think that you have to take into the fact that he's probably not going to be healthy, if we're being honest. So that's where I stand on that. But to move on here, because we spent a little bit too much time on Mr. Tyler Glasnow, my NL Cy Young. And, as Buena alluded to, there is a lot of great candidates to choose from. I mean, I love Zach Gallen, Sonny Gray. What kind of repeat year can he have for the Reds? The Phillies have 2 bona fide aces in Wheeler and Nola. The Giants with Logan Webb, and also they just signed Blake Snell, who has 2 Cy Young. So there's a lot of great pitchers in the NL, but I think there is one that stands out. And, call me a little bit, vanilla here for the choice, but I truly think it's his year this year because, since making his debut, he's been nothing but gross. And that is Mr. Spencer Strider. It's a safe choice. It's the easiest choice, but I definitely think this is his year. 2022, finished 2nd in Rookie of the Year. Last year, what an amazing year last year. An All-Star, finished 4th in Cy Young voting. He had a 20-5 record. Yes, the Braves are a great team. He made all 32 starts, 186 innings, 281 strikeouts. And for Mr. Buona over there, his strikeouts per 9, 13.5 across 32 starts made. Buona, what do you think? Thoughts
honestly,
on that?
other than Glasnow, as like he was my throughout all these predictions, he's my more risky pick. I was looking at like Strider, and even like you didn't like didn't never mention like Justin Steele, who I think can have a great year.
Sure.
So I think most of these picks in the NL are pretty safe to me, but I do think like betting wise, if anyone's into that, Strider is the favorite, and that's who I'd be putting my money on if I was a gambling man. But other than that, I do agree with you in the Strider being the front runner and the leader in this pack. But it's just going to be interesting to watch these guys pitch this year and see which one of them comes out on top.
For sure. And yeah, I really do think as well that Strider is the lock here. I mean, the only thing that he has to worry about is, mixing up his pitches a little bit better, because last year he gave up 22 home runs, which is probably why his ERA was closer to 4 than it was 2. And also probably the reason why he finished 4th in Cy Young instead of a little bit higher, because, yeah, when you're winning 20 of your starts, and yes, the Braves were a really great team, but still, to win 20 games in a season, these days, that's kind of rare. And still, 19 strikeouts away from 300. Cy Young or not, I definitely think Strider is going to break 300 strikeouts this year. keep him healthy, keep him on the field. You can go through Strider's game log and kind of pick the outlier games of where he gave up 6 runs here or 5 runs there. But then he had in games where he was going 7, 8 innings, shutout baseball, and pitching really well. So the key for success for Strider is making sure that he's limiting his home runs. The walk numbers could take a little bit of a step down, just a notch, but yeah, I definitely think Strider is the lock for sure there. All right, but moving on now, we're going to talk about our Rookie of the Year award winners here. Buona, AL Rookie of the Year, who do you got?
So for this one, I don't really have much to say because rookies are interesting for me because once again, you never know what teams are going to do. Like the AL, you have a bunch of people like Holiday for the Baltimore, who realistically isn't going to get called up for 6 weeks because of his contract, and so the Orioles have more control over him. But I'm going with a guy who we know starting in the big leagues for a team that is going to be scary already, and I'm going with Wyatt Langford. I think he can be a sneaky bat on that the Texas team, and as we saw last year, the Rookie of the Year, we had Texas have Josh Jung in the race up until he got injured. Then we had Evan Carter come up later in the year, and so that Texas farm had developed some pretty good players over the year, and I think Wyatt Langford could be the next one.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Carter only came up for that last month, so Evan Carter could easily win the Rookie of the Year as well. I mean, Texas has 2 great choices there, and it kind of gives off a little bit of the Reds from last year where they had like 4 or 5 Rookie of the Year or, Rookie of the Year candidates, really. Obviously, Corbin Carroll stood among all of them, but the Reds had some interesting prospects and rookies, finish in Rookie of the Year voting. The Rangers can definitely be that. Last year we saw the Rangers win their first ever World Series. And this year they're, keeping the same team, the same kind of core, but they do have some interesting pieces like Wyatt Langford, who's making the opening day nod. And of course, Evan Carter, who, for that month in the playoffs, we saw him play really well. So he 100% can do very similar stuff this year. So, Wyatt Langford, a great choice. But Evan Carter can also be kept on the radar. I do like the Langford pick. I went on a little bit of a different direction here from my guy because there's a certain team that, the expectations are a little interesting for them in 2024 here. And I think I'm going to be expecting some big things coming out of the Detroit Tigers camp. And recently, or in the offseason, they decided to extend a second baseman of theirs. And I think he's going to have a great season. And like you said, it's a little bit harder to predict some Rookie of the Year candidates here, even though I got them both right last year. My Rookie of the Year candidate, I think, is going to believe Colt Keith from your Detroit Tigers here. Last year, in a couple different minor league teams here throughout AAA and AA, 126 games, 155 hits, 27 home runs, a 306 batting average, and a 932 OPS. Those numbers are fantastic. And yes, they're a AA and AAA, but across a full season in the big league level, if he come up and if he can perform to that same kind of degree almost, I think Colt Keith is going to be a very nice option for a second baseman. There's not a lot of like superstar second basemen in our league right now. I got to see this guy in the 2023 Futures game, and by I got to see him, I mean I was watching on TV. But that was my first hint of watching this guy play baseball, and he looks good. His stance is nice, and I don't remember if he got a hit in that game or not. But a 932 OPS across a full season almost is really strong stuff there. And Detroit needs a little bit of help. Spencer Torkelson's starting to figure things out. Riley Green's good. They've got some young guys. They signed a couple of veteran pitchers. The Tigers can definitely make a push for that division. They're going to need help from a prospect, and I think it's going to be Mr. Colt Keith who can help the Tigers take over that AL Central.
Yeah, I don't know much about Keith, but once again, in any sport, I feel like rookies are very interesting to look at, as you never know what happens. Do the big leagues get to them? Is their minor leagues all for show? So I think it's just interesting, and it's always fun watching these guys play in their first season and see what they could do overall.
I 100% agree with you. When do you think Jackson Holiday gets called up? May, June?
6 weeks.
6 weeks? I like it. That's something could be something to watch for. If depending on how early he gets called, maybe clearly Jackson Holiday who wins.
Yeah.
Did Adley win in 2021? Is Baltimore going to have a 3-time Rookie of the Year? I don't remember if Adley won. Let me see if I can get. Who won in 2021 the Rookie of the Year? Adley finished second in 2022. Excuse me. Who finished first in 2022?
J-Rod.
Yes, it was Julio, Mr. Julio. So yeah, but still, Baltimore's team is great, and you can definitely put some, sprinkle some on Jackson Holiday as well. But Colt, Keith, White, Langford, those are our picks. Let's flip it on over to the NL. Borna, what do you got rocking in your NL Rookie of the Year?
So once again, like this one was like these were probably the harder picks for me to make just because there's not that many stats or like looks at them. But I just went for the San Diego Padre Jackson Merrill. See, what intrigued me was his jump because last season he played from high A to double A, and he really has never touched triple A, I don't think at all. And he broke the team with an amazing spring training on averaging around 350 with a 400 OBP and a 595 slugging and 995 OPS. Now, I think he has earned his spot on this team, and I think he's earned it for a while. So I think if he can just even produce for his team a bit, he is going to get those opportunities to showcase for himself. And hey, if he's going to be, he's played the first 2 games already. What he gone 2 for 8, which isn't the best, but it's still showing he can produce at the major league levels a bit. So I think it'll be interesting to watch him, especially on this Padres team who's trying to figure things out after whatever last season was.
Yeah, I don't know if you got to watch those Soul Series games, but those outs were hard hit balls. He was gunning them to right field. Got his first hit in that second game, and then that other hit that you alluded to, that was off the wall, maybe a good 6 inches away from his first major league home run as well. So definitely a nice pick there. And, the San Diego Padres are going to be in that messy NL West division this year. And maybe it is Jackson Merrill who kind of helps save the day for the Padres and gets them to the playoffs. I went a little bit of a different approach here. Yes, a lot of young, great prospects, but there was also a lot of guys who came over from the KBO and the MVP. Woo Suk-go and Yuki Matsu, relief pitchers who went to San Diego. Shota Imanga, starting pitcher to the Cubs. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, starting pitcher to the Dodgers. A lot of great talent that did come over. There's one guy that I'm really excited about. I got to, see him in spring training already a little bit. Jung-Ho Lee from your San Francisco Giants, the batting left center fielder, outfielder. He looks fun, man. I kind of like this guy a lot already. It's very early, and we have to see how he actually plays to a major league level. That's always one thing. As odd as it is to see how prospects play in the major leagues, it's even more of a curveball when players from the KBO and MVP come over and have a kind of debut like Yamamoto did in the Soul Series. But I mean, last year, at the age of 24. 86 games, did deal with an injury, 105 hits, a 318 batting average, an 860 OPS, 6 home runs, but, he's a contact guy. And, in 2022, where he had nearly 60 extra games, he had 23 home runs. So, there is still the power there. I like his swing a lot. It seems kind of, to use the video game term, glitchy. It just seems like it's going to be a hitting machine, kind of gives off Luis Arias vibes, Bo Bichette vibes, where this guy's just going to go up there and he's going to go 3 for 4 on a daily basis for those Giants. He's going to get on base, lead off the ball game. And, like I said, that NL West is going to be messy. The Padres, Diamondbacks, and Giants really all have a great shot for second in that division. The Giants surprisingly had one of the best off seasons, and I was very hard to them in the TOPs that I did. But I mean, Jung-Ho Lee might be the best, out of all the MVP and KBO players that came over. Yamamoto expected to be the best. I think at the end of the season, it's going to be Jung-Ho Lee who's holding up that Rookie of the Year trophy.
Yeah, I think the Korean players and other players coming from other leagues, be it Asia or even some other leagues in the world, are always interesting. As we think they're ready for the majors or anything, but we saw with Yamamoto, that's not always the case. But I do think they have a really good shot at winning. It's experience at the end of the day. They're coming from a league where they weren't just playing in AAA with like newly prospects who are like in their younger years. You would have some ex MLB players or players who have played in the MLB in these other leagues
For
who
sure.
are pitching, and it's competition nonetheless. So I could totally see him winning the rookie of the year this year.
Like it's just like his swing is nothing like him, but it's just giving me like the next kind of Ichiro vibes, like in a way. Like if he is as good as I think he is going to be, I mean, I think this guy's going to have 200 hits in the season and really have a strong year for these Giants and potentially help them make the playoffs. So all the best for those guys, and hopefully Mr. Jung Ho Lee is makes me look good come the end of the season. All right. Let's move on here. Relievers of the year, AL, NL. I will go first here. There's a certain player that I just kind of like in the AL, and that's Jordan Romano. A little Blue Jays fan here. And I think, the Blue Jays are going to be in the mix for playoffs, and there's going to be, some talk about, what's going to separate them from the Yankees, from Baltimore, from Tampa, from Houston, Texas. Like the AL is very heavy. And the Blue Jays are going to need someone in the back end of that bullpen to save games late. And for me, Jordan Romano's been that guy. Last 2 years, both all-star appearances for him. 64 innings in 2022, 59 in 2023. Finished the year with 30 saves. So, if you get 36 saves in a year, that's pretty good. And there's obviously a lot of in the AL to go with, and I kind of like my curveball here with Romano. Definitely one of those where it's like could happen, yes, but is it the plausible most likely? No, because you have Class A, you have Josh Hader who came over. I would have picked Hader, but I just find it interesting now with like the mix of like Ryan Presley there for the Astros as well. Like how are they gonna manage that manage the bullpen there? But yeah, in 2022. 85% save percentage, 2023, 90% save percentage. So, going off of that this year is going to be 95% save percentage. And I think, he does a really good job of mixing up his pitches. He'll have his occasional, give up a home run in the ninth, but I do really think heavily of Romano this
year. Yeah, I think Romano, the big issue I have with him as a Jays fan is he either comes in and throws out it's a 3 up, 3 down, or gets my heart rate racing watching the games. But I do think he's a good bet. I think once again the NL is more fun to talk about when it comes to relievers. As once again, I think that's just where all the pitchers somehow migrated to. But yeah, it's interesting to think about for the AL side at least.
Well, then who do you have here then for the AL?
Well, you already mentioned who I have, but a bit. But I went Emmanuel Clase. Off the record, we talked about how Cleveland has given up the least amount of home runs in the ballpark, and he's just he throws heat out of the pen. He's playing in the weak Central, so he's going to get to face those teams that really he should be closing against, and he's not going to have to worry about those top end talents like if he were in the AL East or even in the AL West. So I think that's going to play to his advantage. And like last year, he had 44 saves, leading the AL. So I genuinely do think he can keep that up. And if we look at the year before that, even he had 42 saves with a 1.36 ERA, and I think that's totally doable for him. And it shouldn't be a surprise if he's anywhere close to one of the best relievers in the AL.
Can I just say something that I just searched up and found that actually shocks me a little bit? Emmanuel Clase, the last 3 years, he's pitched over 70 games all 3 times. Like this guy doesn't get a day off here for Cleveland. And I kind of like that, but at the same time, it also kind of scares me for his arm. Because I mean, how long can he do that before getting injured? Last year, he played 75 games, which is a really high number when you think about it. Almost half of the season that this guy comes out of that bullpen. So, definitely his highest ERA of his career last year, but it's still an all-star, still a great pitcher. That AL Central, man. Juan Duran even for the Twins, another guy. But I like Clase here. Yeah, definitely will come in, get those saves. Got a nice cutter, kind of Rivera-esque, but and doing it in his own way. But yeah, 70 games. Wow, that's a lot. All right, then. So we're going to now move on to the NL reliever of the year. And like my rookie of the year, that NL West, it's going to be a cluster. There needs to be something that's going to separate, the teams from each other, separate the Diamondbacks from the Padres, from the Giants, from the Padres, whoever. There needs to be that outlier factor. The Padres, as good as they are, and they acquired Dylan Cease recently, they lost a lot of key pieces. They lost Soto. They lost Snell. They lost Hader. The Diamondbacks, I talked about it a lot since, debuting my podcast. Paul Sewald, I love the guy. I think he's a great pitcher. I think he helped the Diamondbacks get as far as he did. A good relief pitcher goes a long way in the playoffs, in my mind. And I think the Giants have a guy who is going to help them get far this year, and that is Camilo Doval from your San Francisco Giants. This guy, hasn't gotten the hugest amount of opportunities to save games and perform. The Giants seems a little lackluster. And of course, the Giants in 2021, which is when he debuted, he wasn't the closer, so he wasn't getting those opportunities yet. The last 2 years, he's been the closer, and he's been really good in those 2 years. 12-12 record, a 2.73 ERA, 137 games, 135 innings, 167 strikeouts, 66 saves, and he's only given up 7 home runs. I like him a lot. Excuse me. I think with the right team, he's going to get a lot more opportunities to make those saves. Those games are going to be close, and I really think he's going to be, a close to lock, really. There's a lot of great talent, like you said, but I think Doval's really got another gear to get to, and I think we're going to see it this year.
Yeah, I like the Duvall pick. If I'm being honest, he was probably the other person I would have went with if I didn't go for the guy I went for. But I do like it, and I think he's once again a really good arm, and he's proven that already. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the strongest relievers in the NL next year.
Yeah, I definitely hope so, because, I really think he's going to help the Giants out in a big way here. What about you? Who do you have for your NL reliever of the year?
So I got my boy Edwin Diaz, probably one of the best entrances in all of baseball, probably one of the most entertaining people to watch coming out of the pen, but also one of the strongest relievers in the game. Last year posting a 1.31 ERA.
You mean 2022?
Well, yeah, his last fall season.
His last season, okay. He didn't play last year. He was hurt.
But so his last season, but 1.31. Given this Mets team being the Mets, I know it's a big joke, but I do think he can stabilize their bullpen. I think he can be their guy if they put up some runs. They have the bats to do it, and I think he can really win them some games this year, especially with how they have been the past 2 years of not really meeting standards, like other teams who have spent as much as them or even more. I think Edwin Diaz can is a bright spot in their pitching staff, and I do think he can come out and be that best pitcher for them, and even the best pitcher in the NL. And I don't think that should surprise anyone.
Yeah, I like the pick. I like the idea of him coming back and being that same Edwin Diaz himself from 2022. But I mean, as amazing as he is when he's on his great years, he's very inconsistent year to year. You look at his 2018, that last year with Seattle, he had a very similar season to the one he had in 2022, higher strikeouts and everything, but still, that 2018 was very special. And then he came over to the Mets and posted a 5.59 ERA, 26 saves with an 80% save percentage. Then in 2020, in COVID year, he had a 60% save percentage. And he just wasn't his ERA was much lower still, but yeah. And then 2021, a 3.45, that save percentage getting around the 85 mark. 2022, he was fantastic, and I hope he has that still. But the thing that separated, me from him is the inconsistency year to year. We've seen his all-star years in 2018 and 2022 being these outstanding years where he's finishing top 10 in Cy Young and top 20 in MVP voting as a reliever, which is super impressive. But then there's also those 3 years in between that, those are just 3 years, and it was, a weird time, COVID and everything. Sure. It just doesn't sit right in my head. I would love nothing more for Narco to come back on, for this guy to come out of his bullpen and just shut down a 1-2-3 inning in the ninth, record a save. But I don't know if it's going to be as easy as it was for him in 2022 heading into this year, but I hope you are right about that. Moving on here, last, I guess, award for us here. Manager of the year. Buona, we'll start with you. Who do you have for your AL Manager of the Year?
You see, it pains me to say this, but I have Aaron Boone. Now, the Yankees last season were disgusting. They were not a good team. They failed to meet any expectations. Obviously, they dealt with injuries, but still, it's the Yankees. For how much I love to see them fail, it felt really weird having an AL East competition without them or even the Red Sox in. But unlike the Red Sox, who in my eyes are just not that good of a team, the Yankees do have Aaron Judge. They just got Soto, and I think Aaron Boone has to step up and lead this team competing for this division. I do think they are probably the favorite going in to win the AL East, and I think they should be. Other teams like I'm Toronto, Baltimore, Tampa Bay. Obviously, who knows what happens? We know Tampa Bay likes to do this thing where they bring up some random players no one's ever heard of, and they become some of the best players in the league. We know Baltimore has these rising stars, and we know Toronto's been up there for the past few years too. But I do think Aaron Boone can and will probably lead this team to win the AL East. And with that confidence, with getting Soto, he can probably lead them even further than that in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a Yankees team that was definitely not hitting any expectations. They still kind of came back and finished a game over 500 at 82 and 80. So we'll give him that. But I agree with you. The Yankees last year just weren't it. You look at the top, 12 players in WAR. Anthony Volpe was third, and it was his rookie year. There's no stand. Rizzo was playing with a concussion for 3 months, and nobody knew about it. It was a really weird Yankees team. They had an awful August. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say they're the favorites. Yes, getting Soto is a huge step forward into getting into that, getting the Yankees back to that status of that they have. But I mean, we're also talking about a Yankees team that lost Garrett Cole, or is going to be losing Garrett Cole for the first 2 months of the season here. And I don't know, Boone's going to have to really be smart about how he uses that bullpen, because outside of Marcus Stroman, Carlos Rodon, what can you get out of them, right? It's always interesting to see how someone plays in Yankee Stadium for the first time. Carlos Rodon, after a horrendous season last year and, dealing with injuries and everything, what can he have in the tank? Nestor Cortez Jr., can he bounce back? The bullpen's nice. There's obviously Clay Holmes and Jonathan Loáisiga. But yeah, that team, Soto and getting Verdugo, it helps out in a big way. Of course, no Jason Dominguez yet, because he's going to be out this year. It'll be interesting to see what the Yankees have to say entering the division. I still kind of like Baltimore over them, just off of, the young talent and the more consistent, healthy team. But, if Cole comes back and starts shoving, if Rodon and Stroman are producing well and good, and I think Boone's a nice shout for that Manager of the Year. But I'm going to go in a different direction here. I'm going to go to a place that's, I'm not too sure about, but I want to be sure about them. So maybe talking about them a little bit will help me kind of stand down on my ground here a little bit. That AL Central Division, we're looking for a team to stand out this year. We're looking for someone to actually be a good team. And you have your obvious favorites, but then you have a team that kind of sat in the middle last year that made some sneaky moves this offseason, and I think is still, this guy is one of the best managers in terms of using the bullpen. And that's from your Detroit Tigers, the manager, AJ Hinch. I really like Detroit. Something about this team, maybe it's the young kids coming together now, but I mean, you look at that lineup, they made the first offseason move by acquiring Mark Canha. I mean, the young kids, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, how about Kerry Carpenter, Parker Meadows, of course, my Rookie of the Year choice, Colt Keith. There's a lot to be happy about with the lineup as a whole. You're still paying Javi Baez. I mean, can we get a rebound Javi Baez, please? Because that could be a huge difference to the Tigers. I think if Javi Baez starts the season off really hot, we're talking about a Tigers team that could win 85, maybe even 90 games if everything goes going to plan. Of course, they have stars in their rotation. Tarek Skubal, he's a sneaky dark horse for Cy Young potentially. They signed Kenta Maeda, they signed Jack Flaherty, Casey Mize, the 1-1 in 2018, first round, first pick, and he's been he's been injured, and he just hasn't been, to what we saw in AAA, what people were saying he's the top prospect. Can Casey Mize come back? Reese Olson's still a guy there. The bullpen is what's shifty about things, but depending on how Hinch uses that bullpen, I'm thinking this Tigers team can go really far. And if they end up making the playoffs and winning, 88 games, I think AJ Hinch is a lock for the manager of the year.
See where you're coming from, and I also do believe with teams like the Detroit Tigers, it comes down to how good of a manager you are, especially with players like Javier Baez. And I think this is for any sport once again that if you have a star player who's getting paid a lot of money, most fans or even people expect them to play, regardless of how they're doing. But as a manager, I think AJ Hinch can kind of, if Javier Baez keeps doing Javier Baez type things and doesn't know where the strike zone is, swings at absolutely everything. You have these young guys coming up, and I think it's AJ Hinch he has that repertoire to kind of pull Baez off and give these young kids a shot. And in the same way, these young kids come up, and if they're not doing too hot, I don't think he's scared to tell them they're not doing hot, and he can lead this team as a manager to more than maybe people think they could do. And especially in this AL Central where, once again, it's open for the taking. Anyone can win it, in my opinion. I do think he has a chance to show why he's such a good manager and why they have him there in that role.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of nice pieces. The young kids are still there. They have Keston Kira in their minor league system right now, I think. So I really hope that AJ Hinch and these Tigers prove me right. I really think it's a division that's up there for grabs, and there's nothing wrong with the Tigers going for this grab here. I think, they can easily win this division.
For sure. And now if we want to take it to the NL side, I'm not. Yes. I'll lead it off because I think mine is fair. I looked at it and it was like the NL didn't really have teams that stood out to me in a way. Because when I look at a manager of the year, I think of the manager has to be the difference, right? The manager has to kind of stand out, and it's very hard for someone who's been there for a while to bring a team for example, the Jays. I don't. John Snyder would have to do a lot to win Manager of the Year, but I found one specific manager I liked, and that's Craig Counsell for the Cubs, as he's experienced already, but especially with how the Cubs season ended last year and their pieces, they have their rookies coming up in Pete Armstrong. They have Seiya Suzuki playing his second year. Cody Bellinger's coming back on a weird-esque deal where he's just playing to hopefully earn more money. This team has a lot of questions in who's going to lead it. Justin Steele, can he perform to what he did last year? They lost Marcus Stroman, so who's going to fit? I think Craig Counsell has the experience to make those calls for them. I think he can lead this team because on paper, this Cubs team isn't bad, and I think they can make a wild card appearance at minimum. So I think he can really lead this team in a direction that takes them over the top. And I'm not saying they're going to go and win the World Series, but I think they can be a scary team if they can put it all together. They have the pieces there, in even Dansby Swanson. And I think he's the guy who can lead this team to the future and hopefully to some wins.
Yeah, I definitely, first of all, love the Cubs' plan to snipe the Brewers manager, Craig Counsell, one of the greats, in recent years and everything. It's interesting because I believe you. I think the Cubs in that NL Central, there's a lot of hope. Christopher Morel, I love the kid. Ian Happ, one of my favorite switch hitters. There's a lot of, talent on this Cubs team here. I think you said it. The big question is, what are you going to get at Justin Steele? If he is anything like he was in, 2023, maybe the Cubs do have a shot. I think losing Stroman hurts them, but can Shota Imanga, help them in that way? The bullpen could use a little bit of work, but I mean, yeah, that NL Central, I think the Brewers are done. The Pirates, young and fun, but maybe a year or two away. You're talking down to a Cardinals resurgence after a horrific 2023, and then a battle between the Reds and the Cubs. And I mean, I think the Cubs could have a shot for sure. And if Craig Counsell is the manager that he is with the Brewers, yeah, why not? I like it.
Yep. Who do you got?
I've got a little something different here because there's a guy. Well, actually, no. This one actually took me a while, considering it's not an MVP or not the Cy Young. There are some teams to be excited about in the NL this year, and you mentioned a guy who's done it before. Listen, if Dave Roberts and the Dodgers win 120 games, he's gonna win Manager of the Year. That's a hard thing to do. It doesn't matter how good the Dodgers are. Put up 120 wins. That would be super impressive. Brian Snitker with the Braves, same things. I'm looking for a team that missed playoffs. There's ambition, there's drive, there's some fun stuff, and I couldn't settle between two guys, so I'm going to give you both because I like them both. The first one, I want to go to what my initial one was, my gut feeling, and that's Bob Melvin of your now San Francisco Giants. It's the same as what you were saying with Craig Counsell. He went from the Brewers to the Cubs. Bob Melvin went from the Padres to the Giants, staying in division. Last year with the Padres, 82 and 80, some disappointing stuff. They almost came back and made playoffs if their earlier parts of the season weren't so bad. Bob Melvin's done it before. He's been a great manager. He's been around since 2003. He's done different teams. He's had a lot of winning seasons. And, especially with the Oakland A's of the 2018, 2017, 19 kind of years, Bob Melvin was a great manager. He still is a great manager. And I think he's going to have a very nice chance here with the Giants. As mentioned in this episode, that NL West is a mess. It's up for grabs. And, outside the Dodgers. But the Diamondbacks, Padres, and Giants here are all going to have this opportunity here. I think Bob Melvin's a great manager. He's a name that, we know. And I think he's going to be able to lead the Giants in a huge way. But my other guy here that, I thought of a little bit more here. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. You talked about the Cubs and what's his name, Craig Counsell here. You know who I like more? I like the Reds more. I feel like their team is more fun. And I like David Bell's options here because, that NL Central is up for grabs. And I think whichever team comes out on top, if we're not talking about an AL Central of last year where they kind of just get handed the position because everyone else is bad, if we're talking about a Reds and Cubs team that are playing on the last 2 weeks of the season and they're all 86 games, 87 games, whoever wins that division is going to have a good chance to win the Manager of the Year. I think the Reds might win the division. I think David Bell might win the Manager of the Year.
I think Manager of the Year is an interesting award and all because end of the day, we really don't know what happens. And it's one of those awards where team success is very much, it's kind of your only stat to look off of. As the Pirates can go and make a wild card, and that could be enough for maybe a Manager of the Year, depending on how the season goes. Or the Athletics, they're not going to do anything, but who knows, right?
No, don't be saying that.
You never know, and that's the fun thing about baseball, where it's, hey, random things happen, and that's why it's fun. The season doesn't end till game 162 is over, and that's where it comes down to, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at last year, Skip Schumacher from your Miami Marlins. First year as a job, made wild card as the 5 seed. They didn't win a playoff game. He was the Manager of the Year. It really has to do with how, for me, the Manager of the Year award is basically, this is your team's expectations at the beginning of the season. How much can you surpass those expectations? Yeah, if Oakland is expected to win 50 games and they win 80, that's a plus 30 in my mind. That is hey, that deserves some love, even if you don't make playoffs. I usually think the Manager of the Year needs to do playoffs. That's something I stand on. So, the Giants pick a wild card. Bob Melvin might get it. Reds win a division. I think they're Bell. If the Cubs win the division, maybe Counsell. But, I think the NL Manager of the Year is definitely very much open for grabs for any of these teams, really. And especially, our top 2 teams here, the Dodgers and Braves, having a fantastic, outstanding season. And Snicker and Roberts, they could have a battle for manager of the year for sure.
For sure.
All right. Well, we still need to do our postseason and divisions here, but I think we're going to carry this one solo from here. Borna, thank you so much for coming on and joining me here and giving us your picks for the 2024 season. And hopefully you do better than I did. But thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully get more right than you do, because I'm not going to let you live that down if that happens.
Yeah, we're both baseball guys, but I would say I'm a little bit heavier. So let's hope that Borna's picks aren't 100% true. But thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. I have a good one.
All right, take care. All right, but now it is for me here. I'm just solo dog. But yeah, let's talk about really quickly here and finish this off because it's been a longer episode, of course. Predictions for the divisions and the World Series here. I'm going to go pretty fast on these. We've talked about them a little bit, so just because to save time a little bit today. But yeah, so let's start here. Division winners. For me, the AL East, the Yankees are good. The Blue Jays are great. The Rays have a chance, but it's Baltimore's to lose. Last year showed it. This year is just going to be another step forward for them. They have Corbin Burns. When Jackson Holliday gets called up, I really believe strongly in Baltimore this year to have a really fantastic year. I mean, the kids were great, impressive last year. Another year of Gunnar Henderson, another year of Adley. Even they're more veteran guys now, like Austin Hayes and Ryan Mountcastle. The only thing that could throw this off would be obviously Felix Bautista. Having him would really secure it for me. Without him, you get Craig Kimbrell, a little bit more of a wild card these days, but I still feel strongly about Baltimore. I'm taking them for the AL East. For the AL Central, I said it in the Manager of the Year. I said it in the Rookie of the Year. The Tigers have this chance here. The Twins in the Guardians, like there's love, there's opportunity, but I really feel like the Tigers could have something really special this year. AJ Hinch can lead them. Colt Keith get that Rookie of the Year. And yeah, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, much love for the guys. I really think the Tigers have the AL Central on lock. But of course, last year I said the White Sox were going to win the division, so take that one with a grain of salt. Moving on to the AL West. Despite the reigning champion Rangers being in that division, I still think it's Houston's division to lose. I still think, you have to go through Houston. And like I said with the, predictions for the championship series, until it doesn't happen, Houston wins the division. Houston makes it to the ALCS. I'm taking the Astros. Doesn't matter the pitching situation. Doesn't matter, it's Houston. We've seen them without Altuve and Alvarez and still be a great team. So I like Houston there. Give me the Astros there. The NL East will make it very simple. As great as the Phillies are, and as much as I believe in them, the Braves through 162 will still win the division. How they'll face off in playoffs, we'll get there shortly. But across 162, it's the Braves to lose, and they're not losing it in my mind. Atlanta gets the lock there. We'll skip the Essential here, go quickly to the NL West, because as the same thing as the East, as much fun as the NL West might be with the Diamondbacks, Giants, and Padres, it's the Dodgers through 162. Despite any of the outcomes with Ohtani, despite any injuries they have, the Dodgers are too good, and they're easily going to be the locks for the NL West. For that NL Central, though, this is where it gets a little interesting, because I think the Brewers don't have the team anymore. Without Devin Williams for 3 months, Corbin Burns traded, Brandon Woodruff he's injured. It becomes this showdown between, a fun Pirates team who, maybe is still a year out. The Cardinals, they got some pitching help, Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. How much is that going to do for the team? And then you have the Cubs and Reds. And like I said with the David Bell pick, kind of like the Reds seem like they're fun. The rookies get that second year under the belt. It's a new era without Votto. And I think it's going to start on a high, and I think they're going to win that division. So give me the Cincinnati Reds for your NL Central. And those are my 6 teams to win the division. In terms of the wild cards, the 3 in the AL, I think the Blue Jays still get one. I think despite any ups and downs they might have against their own division, they're still going to be able to beat up bad teams and find their way into the playoffs. It'll be about how they can get through to the playoffs. The Rangers, I feel strongly about, of course, being the World Series champions, still having Seager. It'll be weird without Montgomery, but we'll have to see. But I think the Rangers are still a lock for at least a postseason appearance. And with that last seed, you can go Tampa, you can go New York, you can go Seattle, but I'm going New York. The Yankees with Soto, I feel like they're going to struggle a little bit early in the year without Cole. But once Cole comes back healthy, I think the Yankees are going to start rolling. They're going to get past the Rays. They're going to get past the Mariners and slip their way into the 6th seed and sneak their way into the playoffs. I will take the New York Yankees. On the NL side, it won't be close for that 4th seed. It's going to be the Phillies. They might be close to the Braves, but no dice. The Phillies will have to go through a wild card series once again. In the 5 seed, give me the D-backs. I like the Diamondbacks' chances. They had a great year last year. Hopefully they improve on that. They brought in Eduardo Rodriguez. So I will take your Diamondbacks for the 5 seed. And for that 6 seed, it's very open. Cubs, Cardinals, Marlins, Padres, Giants. I like San Francisco. I love Jung-Ho Lee. I say with Bob Melvin, Camille Duvall. Like, how am I picking my Rookie of the Year, Reliever of the Year, and Manager of the Year, all the Giants, and not have the Giants make the postseason? Give me San Francisco. There's going to be some magic there. They brought over Blake Snell. They have Matt Chapman, Jorge Soler. The Giants are going to be a team to watch here, an exciting one in 2024, which means those are my 12 teams that I think are going to make playoffs. We could do a whole playoff prediction here and go through that. The Yankees versus the Tigers. Yankees win. Blue Jays versus Rangers. We've seen this matchup before. I'll take the Blue Jays, which gives us an ALDS of Baltimore versus New York, and then Houston versus Toronto. The ALCS, the AL, goes through Houston. Give me the Astros to beat up on the Blue Jays. And then with Baltimore and New York, I'll take Baltimore for sure because of that young, fun core, which means our ALCS is the Baltimore Orioles and the Houston Astros. And you know what? Down go the Astros for a 2nd year in a row. Give me Baltimore to make it to the World Series. On the NL side of things, we have the Reds versus the Giants. And as a fun season the Giants have, the Reds find a way. They hold them off and win the wild card series. And then Phillies and D-backs, not a 7-game series. It's a 3-game series, which means less of a comeback opportunity for the Diamondbacks. Give me the Phillies to move on and head to the NLDS, which means we have a Braves, Reds, Dodgers, Phillies. And starting there, I mean, the Phillies get by the Braves, who are this incredible juggernaut every season. I think they do so here. They beat the Dodgers and head to the NLCS. The Braves and Reds, we've seen this matchup in COVID before. The Reds are fun, but the Braves have too much talent. The Braves move on, which means instead of an NLDS between the Braves and Phillies, we have an NLCS between the Braves and Phillies. And I think those extra 2 games will mean nothing for Atlanta. I still think Philly is going to have some playoff success against the Braves. Give me the Phillies to make it to the World Series, which means as of now, my prediction, the World Series, this end at the beginning of the season, will be the Baltimore Orioles from the AL and the Philadelphia Phillies from the NL. They will clash, and after 6 games, it'll be your Philadelphia Phillies who win the 2024 World Series. That are my predictions. That is my predictions for the 2024 season. Once again, thank you to Borna for joining us here for his predictions. And yeah, the season is undergoing in 3 days. Get excited. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening to today's episode. And I will see you for the first recap of 2024 next week on Monday.